Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it, Thursdays here at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt. Willie J is in. Will Wilson. Find us, follow us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. At Willie J on Twitter. Email chris@hailvarsity.com, and you can dial us up, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Plenty of thoughts from Scott Frost to get into. Thoughts from the mayor, Coach Hoiberg, and tough one last night for Nebraska in the Big Ten ACC Challenge, the Ramble and Wreck. And Alvarado went off, man. We'll hear from the mayor here coming up. But tough one if you're a Nebraska basketball fan. We'll see if it gets worse, better, or somewhere in between tomorrow night at 6 as Nebraska and Creighton tip. So on the program coming up in about 15 minutes, Brandon Vogel will join us. We will talk football. We will try and squeeze out some Danny knee stories from Vogues as a Ute. Danny Burke, Pride of Chicago, is going to join us at 4:40, get his take on some Big Ten action. Danny Burke is on 100 radio stations in Sirius XM because he is the man. The Pride of Chicago in 30 minutes. Gary Barnett in 1 hour. We'll talk the Ohio State rule, his feelings on the Buffs getting the Heisman on the Pac-12 South because they're tied with USC, both 4-0. Both lost a game due to COVID. SC would get the nod in the Pac-12 title game. Is that cool? And more from Barney on Nebraska this weekend. And then let's talk with the Pirate. Mike Leach going to join us, the head coach of Mississippi State. Excited to talk all things cowbell and autographs. And we'll talk transfer portal with the Pirate because he may have a thing or two to say about that. Well, let's dive into Nebraska basketball. A tough loss last night for Coach Hoiberg, this Nebraska team. And at what point did you start swearing as a Nebraska fan last night? You were down at half, and things were going okay. Alvarado was watching for much of the first half. Moses did not go off. You look at the final stats, Nebraska really focused in and did a nice job rebounding. They won the rebounding battle. They were supposed to get worked in that. They didn't. But it really just kind of comes down to shooting for Nebraska basketball. And in this offense where it's about pace and it's about space, Nebraska at times moved the ball. At times didn't. And the topic was the 1-3-1 zone. And my biggest takeaway is if Nebraska is going to shoot that many three-point shots, they have got to go in. And that's obvious. Forgive me. I'm almost embarrassed to go there with it. But that's just really it, man. If this is the offense, and it's just one game, okay? I get it. Not going to overreact. They're right there. How good's Georgia Tech? Well, we know Alvarado's every bit as good as advertised as a second-team All-ACC. But what I didn't like was some of Nebraska's shot selection. Nebraska continues to have issues at the rim if they get there. Teddy Buckets has got to be Teddy Buckets. He can't be 4-16. I think Nebraska got a little bit too emotional with when things weren't going in. They didn't droop their head, but I think that rage didn't help them when it comes to finishing. Lat needs more than 5 shots. He passed on a few because he's really your zone buster. He's the guy that's most consistent from downtown. I liked Banton's game offensively. I know he didn't shoot a great percentage, but they just had some things roll off the rim. The star last night was Webster, and that guy comes from a smaller school, accepts his role as kind of the sixth man, and comes in ready. Comes in ready with good footwork, comes in ready in rhythm, comes in ready, and goes 6 of 7 from three-point land. He carried Nebraska, and he kept Nebraska in it. And then the final 7 or 8 minutes hit, and that's when you had a guy like Alvarado take over. Nebraska had no answer. Nebraska's focus wasn't what it needed to be. All that being said, it could be okay tomorrow night. I don't know that they win, but maybe they play better. Maybe they take it down to the wire. Nebraska just wasn't good enough last night. Let's hear from Coach Hoiberg and his overall thoughts, his takeaway, cut 9 right here from the mayor.
You got to give him credit. He stepped up and made huge plays for him. You know, we messed up a couple coverages. 2 guys went with the back cutter on a couple design plays that they have where they come together on splits. Let them get open on that. And then again, the 2 offensive rebounds in that stretch after having a lead at the 7-minute media timeout, I thought were the keys to the game, which they converted into 6 points. And in a tight game like that, a 1-possession game at that time, you can't allow that to happen. You can't give them the momentum and the confidence to finish us off. And then, you know, again, we missed some timely free throws in that stretch as well, and then they got that lead up. So, you know, a lot of things we can learn from, a lot of correctable things. We'll get back in the gym tomorrow and get ready for our game on Friday.
You know what? Nebraska will focus. They'll reevaluate. They'll need a good rebounding effort tomorrow, clearly. They'll need good defense. And I thought Nebraska did a really good job of rotating and trying to contest, okay? I don't think their defensive effort was horrific. I just think there were some loose balls that were an issue. I think sometimes it is what it is with guys that just don't have hands on the team, being able to grab a ball or a deflected ball down low in the rebound situation. I mean, some big guys just don't have great hands, and I haven't seen it getting any better. Turnovers were an issue for Nebraska. They had 16. That hurt for Nebraska basketball. More from Coach Hoiberg here when it comes to their focus and mental toughness here down the stretch, that final 7-8 minute. And there's one play where the lead jumped, right? It was about a 3-point ball game, or it might have been a 6-point ball game. But Alvarado, nobody first and foremost stopped the ball. Secondly, nobody stayed on him. Both guys slipped down to another man, and Alvarado was right there to cock and fire and drill a 3, and Nebraska took a timeout, and then that was your dagger shot, okay? Alvarado had the ball in his hand. He made plays, and he made shots, and he erupted because he'd been on the bench with 4 fouls forever because he kept running in to McGowan's, who's crafty as all get out. I love his defense. I love his energy. He is a thorn for everybody else, but he needs to be a bit more efficient and better offensively. Can't be 2 for 9. So Nebraska was lacking a third double-digit score, all right? You had Webster go for 20. You had another guy in Banton get 15 or 16. You may have had a third double-digit score, but you needed Teddy Buckets to have an efficient 15 to 20-point ball game, and that didn't happen. And Nebraska, I think, tried too much from the outside, which against the zone, that's what they want. But you had some room to maybe knife up that zone by getting closer looks. And there were times you had Banton with a nice little free throw shot or a short corner jump shot, or Teddy could penetrate in early in the second half. But overall, you just saw too many warts on a team. Now, from a mental standpoint, this team's a team that has an edge. They're pissy, and they'll come back so appropriately tomorrow night. They'll have an edge and be ready to go. But again, with Lat picking up a technical foul as a second foul that early in the game, that'll take him right out. It's okay to be a tough guy and bang down low and rebound, but you just got to avoid the technical foul. The chippiness that you're bringing needs to have a line in the sand more from Hoiberg on focus.
Well, it needs to be better. There's no doubt about it. I thought it was really good for a stretch when we took the lead after being down at halftime. I thought we made some really good plays, some toughness plays. But when they got the momentum, I just saw a splinter a little bit. And again, that's the biggest part of this game is battling through adversity, which this group has been good at that so far this season. But for the first time, I didn't see that same togetherness. Even the Nevada game, when we weren't hitting shots, everybody stayed together and stayed with it. Tonight, I just saw us separate a little bit. So got to find a way to do it. I don't care what level you're playing at, elementary school, high school, college, pro. The number one thing you have to do is fight through adversity and battle through the runs. And they did a much better job of that than we did tonight, and that's why they won the game.
Last thought from Hoiberg. We'll revisit with the mayor coming up, but Nebraska dropped a winnable game in a situation where it could have gave them some great momentum going into Creighton, because who's looming? Wisconsin is looming. Ranked Wisconsin's looming December 21st. Jawan and Michigan are right after that. You don't want to go into the new year on a losing skid. This would have been a win, and it was a doable win for Nebraska. And they just weren't good enough last night. Are they going to be good enough tomorrow night to hang in there against a team that could be in the Final Four? Well, the locker room's not happy.
They were bothered by it. That was a dejected locker room in there. And Kobe was doing a really good job of talking and trying to keep the guys' spirits and talking about how we need to put it behind us and bounce back with a good, solid day tomorrow and get ready for one of the top teams in the country against Creighton on Friday, our first road test. So, it was, though. It was dejected. It was disappointed in there. But we got to try to lift their spirits, put it behind us, and get ready to go and hopefully play a complete game on Friday. We're going to have to.
You can play angry, and that might help feed into the old rivalry thing. Willie J., you're a huge Husker basketball fan. I mean, you're not wearing your Mikey Moore jersey today. It must be dirty.
Yeah, it's in the wash.
But the point of this is you were watching, and you knew it once Alvarado started doing his thing, that you've seen this movie before with Nebraska basketball. I hope that they can write it, because I think they're talented enough to be competitive on any given night. They're just not hitting shots.
No. And unfortunately, that's going to be the season, right? If we can't hit shots, I mean, you're going to see that every game.
And
now.
Are they going to be able to hit shots against higher level competition? I think the talent's there, and I don't doubt the mayor's system. I don't. Sure. I think his system works. It's proven it works. The pace and space thing where you can drive and kick, and he's got some dudes, and it seems like this chemistry is really pretty good. But if they keep losing or get pounded, does that chemistry stay solid?
Right. In the zone last night was kind of they couldn't find success with that.
They were just thinking too much.
1-3-1 or something.
It's the old Syracuse.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you got dudes that long and athletic to wingspan it out. Yeah. And it can just switch up on you. But you got to hit some shots. And Lat Mayan's got to take more than 5 shots, and Lat Mayan's got to stay on the floor for the first half to get some rhythm going. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, he's a three-point guy.
Exactly.
Let's go to Scott Frost here. And Coach Frost spoke with the media earlier today. His take on things is Nebraska gears up for Minnesota. That line still 10.5. And Nebraska's done a pretty good job, better than most, on dealing with COVID. And here is Coach Frost on Nebraska's approach this year, why they've been so disciplined is the best word.
It's just something we have to deal with, Parker, and everybody has to. Our team has, I got to compliment them. It's just such a great group of guys and fun group of guys to be around, and they've done a great job staying disciplined. I don't know the exact number. We've had over 20 through the course of this season positive antigen tests, and I think all but 1 or 2 were false positives. But we take extreme cautions when we get one of those and make sure it's not spreading around the team. And every school, I think, has different access to the ability to PCR people and get the results back. And we get it done really quickly here because of our cooperation with UNMC, and wasn't quite as fast for us on Saturday, so that kind of put Marvin in a bad spot. But it's been happening all year.
Scott was the point of the question, and just overall, Nebraska's done a really good job of kind of being ahead of the curve. More from Frost here on Ohio State and the Big Ten, and that title game that Ohio State is going to be in.
Yeah, that's a decision that doesn't have anything to do with me. It's, other than it's probably what's best for the conference to give ourselves the best chance to get somebody in a playoff. And it's such an unusual year. It'd be hard to penalize Ohio State. I guess all I would say is if I was in that situation, if I was Ryan Day, I'd want an opportunity. And other than that, it doesn't have much to do with us.
Last thought here from Scott Frost. Brandon Vogel is coming up. Mike Leach an hour away. This is Frost. How's the focus been this week? Got a really wounded Minnesota team on paper. Is Nebraska locked in?
Yeah, way better. Absolutely way better. Last about 3 weeks, I've really seen some growth on our team. Their mindset, their preparation, their execution. I'm really encouraged by what I'm seeing right now and the attitude our guys have.
So we'll talk a little bit here about Minnesota, Nebraska with Brandon Vogel. We'll get into who Week 9 could be. I'd love to see Nebraska, Wisconsin. Let's revisit that thing. That'd be outstanding. I don't know if Wisconsin's interested if they come up with COVID again. Just for the sheer fact that, look at the stretch Wisconsin's been on, right? They had Indiana last weekend. They missed ball. Then they get Indiana. Now it's Iowa. And then who do they finish out with? Is it rival Minnesota for Paul Bunyan? Or does Nebraska get whiskey and Coach Alvarez and company here before we figure out what is likely bowl-wise? Get a win on Saturday. Nebraska, I think, could be bowling, and Nebraska fans would love that. The team would love it. Great to be with you on a Thursday at Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Brandon Vogel of Hail Varsity up next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Numbers to get in, dial us up 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. We are efforting Brandon Vogel, managing editor from HailVarsity.com and magazine, and his book with John Cook, Dream Like a Champion. So we'll see if we can't get in touch with Brandon Vogel. Meanwhile, it's Nebraska, it's Minnesota. Plenty of thoughts on the Gophers and Nebraska. And listen, big ball game for the Big Red. Can they handle success? Can they bounce back from a win with another win after being so close against Iowa, after doing what they did to their bed against Illinois? Post Penn State. We welcome on the managing editor for HailVarsity.com and magazine. His book with John Cook, Dream Like a Champion. Follow Brandon on Twitter at Brandon L. Vogel. Vogues, how's your Thursday, man? What do you know?
Oh, not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited about Nebraska, Minnesota. There's Nebraska-Creighton basketball tomorrow. Were you kind of a closet Georgia Tech guy along with me with the Kenny Anderson era?
No, I can't say that I was.
It's a hard pass moving forward.
No, I was definitely aware Kenny Anderson, he was of that era where it's like, oh man, this is the greatest high school player that we have seen since Blue Alcindor.
Right.
And never fully added up that he ended up at Georgia Tech. Draw whatever conclusions you may.
I can tell you how that worked.
Yeah.
The Brooklyn connection. The Brooklyn connection with Bobby Crimmins, of course.
But yeah, burned bright and brief, that Kenny Anderson era at Georgia Tech.
So let's get your take real quick on Nebraska last night against Georgia Tech, and what do you see tomorrow with Husker basketball against a really, really solid Creighton team? Do you like this Nebraska team, and do you like them enough to think that they'll be able to surprise some people, or is it going to be another year of lumps despite better ball players?
No, I think it'll definitely be less lumpy than last year was. I think they're already a bit ahead of where they were. It's just a more dynamic team in terms of some of the playmakers that they have, but a team that's still, and I think as we saw last night, still limited in some facets. So, I think this is going to be a fun basketball season, I look at Nebraska as a team that when it shoots well, it can beat just about anybody. When it doesn't, which it really didn't last night, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. But for 30 minutes against Georgia Tech, that felt like a total coin flip, a game that could go either way. And then they faltered a little bit down the stretch. But they're definitely going to beat some teams in Big Ten play that they probably have no business beating. And for a program that's in year 2 of a bit of a restructure or a rebuild, I think you take that.
Vogues, let's switch gears to football and get your take here on Nebraska, Minnesota. And what does Saturday come down to, and what did you profile with your podcast, the I-80 podcast on the Hurrdat Media Network?
Yeah, Minnesota's kind of an interesting team. Probably they're a team that I think, because PJ Fleck is polarizing, for lack of a better term, it might be getting a little bit undervalued so far. Like that offense remains really efficient. Means that it stays on schedule down to down. Pretty impressive, and pretty impressive in that it's done that even through losing a Rashad Bateman. I know they haven't played without him, but they thought they were going to be without him at the beginning of the year. Is much run heavier than it was a year ago. But still, just kind of keep on. There's a little bit of a 2019 Northwestern vibe to me for it, in that last year's Northwestern team, you could look at them and be like, defense was great still, but man, was that offense really, really bad. That's kind of where things are at for the Gophers, except flipped a little bit. We could have expected them to struggle defensively a little bit, but not to the degree that they are. So I think that means good things for Nebraska this weekend. But if you look ahead to 2021, I wouldn't write off like Minnesota as a program that couldn't follow up an 11-win season based on what I've seen so far.
I look at their defense and their front seven, as young as their linebacking core is and as decimated as they've been on the D-line. There's a lot of your issue with this defense last year. And then the secondary is just kind of, well, there's no Antonio Winfield Jr. Okay, I mean, there's no guy that's playing ball for Tampa in that secondary, patrolling and being as good as he was. But listen, Saturday's critical for Nebraska to build on success. Saturday's critical for an offense to continue some explosiveness or at least some steadiness, right, against a defense that is, air quotes, supposed to be down. And then you've got the bowl picture. I mean, if Nebraska wins Saturday, do you feel pretty good about extra football no matter what happens week 9?
Yeah, I would, depending on how many bowl games end up being left. I think that's probably the bigger concern, with a couple more Big Ten games getting canceled. There's just going to be a mass of teams that are, 2 or 3 wins from the Big Ten with potentially still spots to fill. And how do you choose them? Well, Nebraska is a team. I mean, we saw Boston College today come out and announce that, yeah, we're good on bowls. Like, we're not going to play one, which, given the circumstances, makes sense. Nebraska, I believe, is a team that would play one. It's a team that I believe has a pretty good case, just given the interest around it, to get selected. When you're choosing from a bunch of teams that all they played were conference schedules, and a lot of them have pretty similar records. So I think there's that on the line for Nebraska. But I also think just kind of there's a chance for Nebraska. You go back to that Illinois loss, which was such kind of a reset for the program, I think. There's a chance to have a little bit of momentum going into 2021 as well, which I think is probably the biggest thing for the Huskers.
It is, because you get a shot to end the 2020 grind fest the right way, don't you? I mean, say you win week 9, say you get a favorable bowl matchup, say you finish out, dare I whisper, 5-4. And then you can go, you and I can go have a Guinness before kickoff in Ireland. I mean, things could be really good for Nebraska when it comes to the whole development side of things. Plus the youth, those guys aren't young anymore. And you've got a guy that's renewed at quarterback. You've got some offensive line things to work through, no matter who stays or goes. They're still young. But I think if you can talk a guy like JoJo into sticking around, you get the defensive line and Stilley and your middle backers back, and who knows what happens in the secondary. I mean, you could have a really pretty solid team that could look like they finished and get a full year of good football. I mean, I know I'm getting way ahead of myself and trying to not roll off this hype train too much, but I think that they could, with next year's schedule, I mean, this is all set up for them, Vogues, to do some good things, and I think you found an answer at quarterback yet again that you've always had there all along. We were talking Mackenzie Milton last Thursday. Well, you were right on the money saying, well, there's a lot to be decided by both quarterbacks on the current roster, and Adrian's taken a good step forward.
He really has. ESPN's QBR it's not a magic elixir, but it is a stat that tries to combine passing and rushing into one number. So I at least always look at it. Adrian's past 2 games have been 2 of the 5 best games he's had from a QBR's perspective. And you don't want to make too much of that, but you also don't want to undervalue it. Like, his response to losing his starting job for a bit has so far, in terms of the resulting play, been about as good as you could have hoped for. You never know what that's going to be. It's a little bit, and I think that's why we saw, not just because he's a quarterback himself or a former quarterback himself, but also because the bond with maybe your first quarterback is a little bit stronger than it is with just the average player. But we saw Frost agonize over making that decision. It felt like the right decision to me at the time to see what Luke McCaffrey could bring to that offense. And you have to worry, you have to think big picture at that point. Am I losing the guy who we thought was the guy coming in? And Nebraska so far hasn't. So that's super encouraging in a year where you ended up getting to play 7 conference games, like ending 3-4. If you think about a traditional season where Cincinnati was pretty good, Nebraska may not have beat Cincinnati in a non-conference matchup, but you get 2 wins out of that. All of a sudden, you're looking at a 6 or 7 win season if a team like this had gotten to play 12.
Brandon Vogel's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine, his podcast, the I-80 podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and the Hurrdat Media Network. Check that out. Great breakdown in Nebraska, Minnesota. Vogues, I've got less than a minute. And level of nerves for Saturday. Do you think Nebraska wins? Does Nebraska cover? Is it tight?
I think Nebraska wins. I would be a little bit surprised if they just covered easily. That 10-point line when it came out made me think, okay, Nebraska at full strength, Minnesota full strength, that's not a 10-point line. So we'll see just how shorthanded the Gophers are. But I think both teams are going to move the ball. Nebraska's defense, not a top 3 or 4 unit in the Big Ten yet, has shown more than Minnesota's. So it's going to be about Minnesota's going to move the ball. What happens when they get across the 50? Can Nebraska force some field goals there? Minnesota's only attempted 3 all year, which, to me says they're not all that confident in their kicking game. But it also says Nebraska's got to get some stops. So I expect both teams to move it. I think it'll be a pretty good game, pretty back and forth.
Snow's in the forecast, and snow with the HD is awesome, and so it should be pretty good. Don't know how much we'll get Saturday morning, but roll your sleeves up for a little Big Ten football. It's toughest man in the bar type fight going on with those lines of scrimmage. Vogues, we'll talk Saturday morning. It'll be good to spend some time again with you. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, there he is, Brandon Vogel. HailVarsity.com and magazine. Danny Burke, Pride of Chicago, Burke's Best Bets, coming up on Hail Varsity.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time to catch up with the Pride of Chicago with the VEASAN Network Rush Hour. You hear it on Sirius XM at 6 o'clock Central, and you see him with the Chicago Bears. Pregame on Fox, it's Danny Burke, the Pride of Chicago, at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter. Mr. Danny, man, how are you? Already 2 weeks into December. What's shaking?
You know, Schmitty, I'm good because for once you and I were synchronized with saying Nebraska would win as the dog in this spot. And look, it came to fruition. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't sweat-free, but it never is. But we'll take it while we can, my man.
Hey, at one point, it was 21-point spread, and those drinks are tasting good. And then the next minute, man, your hand's shaking as you're taking another pull because, David Bell just went 89 yards. But, hey, big-time win for Nebraska. Let's jump forward here. And the Nebraska-Minnesota game, you've seen the line fluctuate from 10.5 to 9 and from 9 back to 10.5. You don't know, man. I mean, it's name tag city on Saturday, maybe some snow as well. But all things point to Nebraska trending to win this football game. Do they cover the double digits is the question, and I turn to you.
Schmitty, I'm kind of bewildered with this line here, to be honest. And a lot of times, you know, I've defended Nebraska, at least in these past couple weeks, I guess you could say, with covering the spread, whether it be against Iowa, obviously Purdue this past week, Northwestern as well. I lean toward Nebraska. But, you know, I don't understand how Nebraska is an 11-point favorite in the spot, to be completely honest with you. And I actually bet against them, and it kind of stinks because I hate betting against Nebraska unless it's kind of one of those spots in the year where it's completely just you don't forget about it. Nebraska's been disappointing, frustrating, but they're coming off a win. They've been looking better, and I want to keep rooting them to go on. But it's just too hard to pass up, in my opinion. I mean, what warrants Nebraska being an 11-point favorite? I know Minnesota's been kind of a train wreck this year, but I don't think it's been to that degree per se, and even more so, I just don't trust Nebraska as a double-digit favorite because you even saw once they get out to a big lead now, I mean, this is kind of anecdotal with last week, but they let their teams back into it. And I'm not even saying that it's this past week, though. It just seems like that always seems to be the case. There's never a comfortable, dominating Nebraska win, no matter who it's against. And it could still be against, or even against this Minnesota team that has been able to put up some decent amount of points for the most part. The Nebraska defense has looked better, but Schmitty, I don't know. I just can't justify laying 11, 10 points, whatever it is. I know the highest number is 11 with Nebraska, so I'm taking the points with the Gophers. But, yeah, I do see a Nebraska win in this spot.
Minnesota's been off 2 weeks, Danny. The question is truly this: are they ready to quit? Without a number of dudes, potentially. We're talking 20 COVID instances. Mo Ibrahim will run tough. Nebraska's been better against the run. 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's it for Tanner Morgan after last year, and his weapons have all disappeared. They've either opted out or gone to the NFL. And you look at a suspect Purdue defense, right? And Nebraska put up 37. Could see more of the same against a really hampered Gopher defensive unit on a cold Saturday morning. So I think Nebraska wins, but I don't think you're wrong in being hesitant with that 11-point, 10.5-point number. At least we're in agreement that Nebraska gets the outright. We'll just see how feisty you may be with putting heat down on this Nebraska-Minnesota game. Are you interested in Iowa, Wisconsin? Wisconsin, man, it's like they read an email or something before kickoff last weekend where they had no shot of a West Division crown.
Schmitty, this Wisconsin team has been incredibly frustrating to me. For a Big Ten team, I've actually backed them. I guess maybe it's been the one time, maybe twice. No, it was twice. So I did it against Northwestern, and obviously no offense there. And then I bet them last week versus Indiana because, of course, with our competition, we have to make at least 5 picks, and I was able to get the number at about 13.5, so I took advantage of that. had no shot there the whole game. So this Wisconsin team has just been an absolute roller coaster going up and down in the limited games they have played, where you see Graham Mertz be phenomenal, and then you have so many weeks off. You go against Michigan in the Big House, you get a nice win. And then you go against Northwestern and Indiana, and everything completely changes, and you have no offense whatsoever. But the interesting part about this game is that you really saw the odds shift completely in this one in terms of where the sharper action was going. And, you and I were kind of talking pre-show here, and this slate really isn't that good this week. So kind of trying to nitpick which games I wanted to do. I circled out where the biggest movements were in terms of the sharp play, and Iowa opened up as a 3-point favorite. Now you see at most places Wisconsin as a point favorite. So that's even moved more than what I got it at. I got Wisconsin at +1.5, and so I rode with that. I'm trusting the sharp movement in this spot, and more so that Wisconsin just needs to get this win for momentum at the end of the year. In Iowa, we know how good their defense is. Wisconsin's has been better, and Iowa has been known to play down to their competition in some spots. So maybe this is one of them, or maybe you just bank on Wisconsin finally having good offense. But I think, as indicated by the point spread, this is going to come down to the wire, and I'm going to trust Graham Mertz a little bit more than I'm going to trust Petrus in this spot. So give me Wisconsin here. That's
solid logic on the quarterbacks. Iowa's front seven's been incredible. Wisconsin's without their starting center. This thing's going to be points at a premium. And we're talking your traditional 13-10. Somebody sneezes, there's a false start. There's your difference, right? But I guess I would lean Iowa just because it's at home, and I know home means nothing, but it's still it's still Iowa City, and it'd be totally like Wisconsin to snap out of this and ruin Iowa's really pretty good bounce back season after going 0-2. But I just like Iowa at home. I think I'm going to take Iowa in the point. Why not? I got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes here. The battle for Cook County and beyond, right? Illinois and Northwestern. Northwestern, are we going to get a little peekaboo action by Fitz's crew with this rivalry game? Lovey, they jumped out 14-0 against Iowa. They curb stomped Nebraska. Illinois got some fight in them here.
Schmitty, don't you have to play into account that Northwestern's already set for the conference championship game, too? How dominant are we going to see Northwestern in this game? How many players are going to play the whole way? In that offense, I'm still just not writing home about it with Northwestern by any means. And Illinois is such an odd team, obviously, where they've had some decent performances and where they haven't. I wouldn't lay the 14. I don't like laying that many points. And for me to lay with 23 with Ohio State was a big thing last week. Luckily, that came through. But with Northwestern, I don't think they have a good enough offense for me to want to lay it with them. I'm not betting this one, but if anything, as much as it pains me to say, I would be taking the side of Illinois and the +14.
Aside from the Maryland explosion of 43 points, they've scored 21. They've scored 21 again, 27, 17, and 20 in the loss. And then they haven't played for a week. So there we go. 30 seconds. Danny Burke, Pride of Chicago. Burke's Best Bets, his show Rush Hour, 6 p.m. Central on the VSiN Network, Sirius XM. Your NFL pick of the weekend. Who do you like? 30 seconds.
Schmitty, it's been tough because the slate's actually really intriguing. I'm sweating out a teaser that I still have pending with the Ravens from the other night and the Bucs, but I think I'm going to end up pulling the trigger on the Cardinals. It seems like a buy low spot with them against the Giants. The Giants have been playing better. They've been covering the spread. The Cardinals, come on. They got to win this game. They're very infuriating, but I'm taking Kyler Murray and the Cardinals -2.5.
You've been on the Cards for the last couple of weeks. You've been sucked in by the Hail Mary win, man, but good luck to you. Danny Burke with us, VSiN Sports Network, his show Rush Hour, pregame with the Bears on Fox Chicago, at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter. Pride of Chicago, have a good week, brother.
You as well, Schmitty. Talk to you soon.
Gotta love some Danny Burke. Mike Leach coming up. Hail Varsity continues.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Thanks for hanging out. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Will Wilson is in. We'll run down the Pirate, Mike Leach, see what he's up to Coming up here before the show is done, we welcome in the Hall of Fame coach with Colorado and Northwestern. We say hi to Gary Barnett. Coach, we've had 60s and 50s before it gets all Big Ten weatherish this weekend. How are you hanging? How's the weather been for you?
Well, we got our first rain today, Chris, in 110 days. And it's like people are going outside and waving at it. It was a good soaker. The golf courses needed it. The valley needed it. So it was really a welcome rain, and it's a little chilly, but it's going to get nice tomorrow, and it'll be okay.
So did you get golf in before the rain?
I got 9 holes in, and it was raining pretty hard, and just opted out. But I did go down to the putting simulator, looked at my stroke a little bit, decided it was awful, and worked on that. So it's, got something out of it.
Man, you're a high 70s, low 80s, or low 70s on some certain days. You're a really good golfer, and you're telling me with a straight face, yeah, my putting's not good. I don't believe you, man.
Oh no, it's true. You go to the simulator; it'll show you what you're doing wrong. So, coaches, our philosophy is you're either getting better or you're getting worse. So you got to work on it.
If the Big Ten went to the simulator, what would it tell it?
You know what? I think the Big Ten made the right decision. Everything considered. If they hadn't have done it, they'd have been called rigid and old school. And once they did it, they're saying, "Well, you're just playing to Ohio State." But they did it. I'm good with it. I really am. And I don't think enough people really care for it to make a difference. And I think that everybody wants to see the best teams play. Mm-hmm. And Ohio State, I think, is probably one of the best teams. And so, let's go for it. See what happens.
I think that's the appropriate thought as well. I mean, Ohio State won the head-to-head against Indiana. I think Coach Allen's really good. He's got a bunch of kids that love playing for him. And it would have been fun to see Northwestern, Indiana play ball. I don't know that Fox Sports would have liked missing Ohio State 2 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
From a TV side of things, but what's Northwestern's take on this? I mean, obviously you've won the West, and they're lying in wait. Is there some nerves? And we'll get to the rapid fire, Coach Barnett pick'em in a little bit. But what's it like going into that Illinois and Northwestern rivalry game ahead of a conference title game?
Well, I don't think anybody cares. I think Fitz knows he's got a good club, and the rivalry with Illinois is not a national rivalry, but it's a big rivalry between those two schools. And it's, I know Fitz has taken it personally, and every time he plays Illinois, he really wants to beat those guys, and feels like they can, and they can. So. I haven't talked to him this week, but I know that they don't care what's up next week. They really want to play Illinois, and Illinois is playing better, as you know. And
yes, we know.
They're a pretty good team, and so this isn't going to be the cakewalk that people thought it might be earlier.
Gary Barnett's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, talking college football. So a thought on Nebraska, Minnesota. I want to get your take on Colorado and the Pac-12 as well with the South Division. But Nebraska played a good ball game against Purdue, had a chance to blow it open. It got tight. They responded. Adrian Martinez is doing about everything, man. He's playing really good football, but the defense is better. What's your read on Minnesota? As ravaged as they've been with COVID, they still they've shown some glimpses this year, although they haven't played in a long time.
Well, they've they got the Ibrahim guy is a really good running back. He was at one point leading the country, or at least Power 5 conference, and so he can run the ball. Tanner Morgan, the quarterback, has not had the year everybody thought he would. It looks like Bateman opted out, but they're still a pretty good football team. This was a year, that they really thought they were going to be good. Mm-hmm. And TJ thought, he said last year was something, but he said, but next year, meaning this year, is going to be their year. And because of COVID, because of other issues, and just because they haven't played as well, they're not quite in that position. So this is still a dangerous team. But to me, Nebraska's starting to hit a little bit of a rhythm. When you defensively, they were awesome last week, 3 of 13 on third downs for Purdue, -2 rushing. And they didn't try to run the ball, 17 times, but their defense is playing really much better now, and you don't turn the ball over, which is a new thing for Nebraska right now. You continue that sort of rhythm, then, it's a game they should win, and, who knows after that, but, likely they might end up in a bowl the way I saw Boston College turn one down, and a few other people are going to turn them down. I think I counted there's 33 bowls available, and not that many teams that are qualified for them.
That's the hope. If you get one Saturday, if you handle success the right way, if you're Nebraska, and you can go into that Week 9 with whoever it's against,
right?
Get to 4-4, or even if you're 3-5, this is a unique year. I mean, that'd do wonders. And I think you're right on. Nebraska feels and looks a little different. I think it was a really rough lesson against Illinois. I think they've been pretty locked in this week, and they feel pretty good. It's really cool to see players interact with coaches after a win. I saw that on the sideline with Nebraska-Purdue. The players were really, really happy for Coach Frost, just like the Indiana kids, Coach. We're really excited and all over Coach Allen after the win in Wisconsin. So that's got to be a feeling that's not topped that easily. Is that fair to say? You've had that moment.
Oh, yeah, no, totally. That's as good as it. You just see how excited. These guys spend so much time together. And it's funny. It's like little kids. And you win a game like that, and you're so exuberant and so excited that you look like a 5-year-old out there at Christmas, and that's so much fun. You just get down to your basic instincts, and it's to celebrate that way.
Coach, I wanted a thought from you on the Pac-12, and let's look at Colorado. I mean, Colorado's ranked. Colorado's 4-0. You got a tough one against Utah. They've switched things, so you got a later kickoff coming up here against Utah, and Utah is always a tough football team, but COVID stepped in against SC in Colorado, but right now the tiebreaker, the nod goes to SC over the Buffs. Any thought of figuring out a way for those two teams to hook up before a Pac-12 title game, or what's your thought moving forward?
Well, I think if the Pac-12 could see their way to flexibility in their thinking, that they might put Colorado and SC against each other, but both those teams have to win, and both of them have tough games. I don't know. I think that you set it out. That's something you need to do before the year starts, and the ACC has set that precedent. You can do that, and I suppose because that precedent's been set, they can go ahead and make that decision now. But I would like to see him be forward-thinking enough to have made that decision before the season started. So if you're Washington or Oregon, you're going to feel really slighted. Mm-hmm. But if they should go that way, and it doesn't look like they will, but you don't know. It could happen. I know Rick George, the AD at Colorado, doesn't like the decision, and he's got to say that publicly. I have no idea what he thinks privately, but it's one of those things. Each conference has got to look out for itself, and the Big Ten looked out for itself. This isn't going to have anything to do with anybody getting into the college football playoffs. There's no money involved, so for the conference, so their decision can maybe remain a little more I guess territorial,
sure,
and take care of the conference, and that would be letting both sides have a winner and have the two winners play each other.
Gary Barnett's with us. Couple more minutes. Coach, I want to go to the coaching carousel and get your take on Texas and Coach Herman's relationship. I know you had told us that you were a finalist for the Texas job a few years back, and you've had interactions down there with folks. Can the Texas program and brass move forward with Herman? What's that relationship like now if Texas was going to maybe make a move for a guy on Fox and that didn't end up working out?
Well, in Texas, you better have a good relationship with about 17 or 18 guys. And
that
people.
Big.
And it's that big. If you do, you're going to hang in there. If you don't, then you're going to be riding into the sunset. So there's about 17 or 18 guys that you got to keep happy down there. And I don't know what's happened. I have no idea how Tom's handled all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I know Mac Brown did a great job of it, and because of that was probably more qualified for the Texas job than I was when he got it. So, Mac did a great job of doing that. And I don't know where Tom's situation is.
Did you enjoy time with boosters and supporters of the program?
Not like, for example, Mac Brown did.
Okay.
I was more businesslike and more about players and coaches than I was anything else. So I didn't dislike it, but I spent my time and efforts on players and coaches and people around our program than I did anything else.
Do you have a feel at all with Michigan and Harbaugh?
Yeah, I think Michigan's they're gonna just offer him a smaller salary, give him more incentives, give him an extension based on that, and I think that'll make everybody happy. Michigan, they just don't fire guys. Well, they actually have, I guess. Rodriguez 3 and out, and and Brady Hoke. So I guess they sort of do that. But they made such a big deal about Harbaugh, and everybody wanted Harbaugh, and so I don't think this is an easy one for them. But I think they give him an extension, maybe lower salary a little bit considering the situation, and give him some incentives.
Gary Barnett's with his coach. Rapid fire, Minnesota, Nebraska, Huskers minus 10.5.
Yeah, I don't know if 10.5's right, but I think Huskers win.
Let's jump into Wisconsin, Iowa. Wisconsin minus 1.5.
Well, I just had to make a pick. My wife and I do this. We have a weekly picking contest.
Really?
So I just had to make this decision about 10 minutes ago. And I went with Iowa. I just think they got a little momentum going. It's at Iowa, and there'll be some people in the stands. I don't think Wisconsin's playing all that well, so I went with Iowa.
I kind of lean Iowa as well, and I don't know if that's going to make a change your bet or not, or your pick. Illinois Northwestern minus 14 for a rivalry game.
Yeah, well, if I'm a betting man and so I'm looking at the spread, I'm going with Illinois, but I think Northwestern wins the game at 14.5 is too much.
You've got a lot of games canceled. Speaking of Mac Brown, Miami minus 3, North Carolina on the road.
I just think North Carolina's got something going for it, and I've liked Miami all along. I think they're so much better. I don't think the road makes any difference. I think Mac's going to score some points, and I'm going to go with North Carolina.
LSU at Florida, Gators minus 23. Is that too large, or is LSU? I mean, they're not bowling this year, so.
I think that's about right. I think Gators cover.
All right. Gary Barnett with us, Coach. Have a great weekend. Enjoy some golf. Enjoy some football with Colorado and Utah.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to it, Chris. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend.
You too. Take care, Coach. Thanks so much. Good to hear from Coach Gary Barnett. That is awesome. I need to start doing that at my house, where me and the bunny have a weekly pick'em contest.
Yeah, and then, winner picks dinner or something like that.
Yes, clearly. If I want it made or picked up, it's me.
Boom.
She is doing the nurse thing right now, so bless her heart. She's in hazmat gear for 13-hour shifts.
Man. Good for her.
And then when she gets home, I ask her to put on the uniform, a different nurse uniform, and she looks for a firearm. This is how it works. She's cool, though. Good stuff from Gary Barnett. Lots covered there. And I get a kick out of Coach talking about, you need to be friends with about 18 dudes down in Texas. And they all have long Cadillacs. They all have Boss Hog horns on the front, of their Cadillacs, and about 17, 18 J.R. Ewings down there. All right, buckle in. We will dive in and spend some time with the Pirate. Mike Leach up next at Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Hello.
Coach, you doing all right?
Yeah, shoot, we're getting ready to go out to practice, get ready for another one here, you know?
Well, that's the way it is, and I got to ask you, how's it worked out for you? Mike Leach with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. You're down to slim and none when it comes to your scholarship numbers. How have you navigated that the last couple of weeks? Got Auburn this weekend.
Yeah, we're gaining ground a little. We're still below the limit or whatever, but anyways, it is what it is. And then, so it's kind of mixed. I mean, on one hand, you don't want to be shorthanded, but the other hand, you really don't want to miss the opportunity to play,
Well, that's kind of the message here in Lincoln. Scott Frost and Nebraska have been very adamant all year, obviously, about playing ball, and it's not gone well some weekends. It's gone well other weekends, but it's about getting better, and you get better by playing. Has that been your message to your kids?
Yeah, that's totally been our message. And the thing is with all the disruption, I mean, it's, it's pretty difficult to consistently perform at the level you'd like. And, of course, we're a very young team, so that was going to be an adventure anyway. But the thing is you still want to get those reps in. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff happening out there, and we've got guys getting better and things like that, and you really want to continue that.
Coach, how do you stay patient with youth? You can see flashes, and this isn't your first rodeo building a program.
It's up and down. It's highs and lows. I mean, it's really exciting to see them improve, and then there'll be some bonehead thing that you look out there and you say, I can do that myself, which, it's just, it is, I mean, it's both extremes, very fulfilling and very frustrating.
I got to ask you, are you in a kitchen or a kind of a work/break room? You got some rattling around going on.
Here's what's going on here. You'll like this. Okay, so
it's a cowbell.
So I'm signing stuff, footballs and cowbells, and see, we're a big cowbell university. So I'm signing some cowbells, and they sound like this. So we got a bunch of cowbells here, and so I'm signing some for the good folks of Mississippi State.
I like that, the cowbell. And I don't have just the instrumental to Don't Fear the Reaper, but man, I wish I did, because you could play along.
We could for sure.
Mike Leach with us on Hail Varsity Radio. So I want to jump into the transfer portal with you on how that is to navigate in 2020, and if you put your college football czar hat on, Would you have it as wide open as it is, or are you just dealing with it?
Just deal with it. I mean, I'm just dealing with it. That's all you can do. I mean, the transfer, you wonder if you're going to have a transfer portal, maybe we ought to, as teams or coaches, you ought to be able to transfer some guys if they don't hold up their end,
So cutting folks that aren't living up to expectations?
Yeah, I mean, guy says, hey, I want to go somewhere where I can play, or there's some guys, sometimes a certain amount are just malcontent type of guys that you just missed on, you're just wrong about, and then the guy transfers, they want a different school, well, we might want a different player,
What's that like for you when it comes to making contact with a kid? Obviously, you want to see him in person and evaluate. You can't do that in 2020. But just overall, through your experience.
Honestly, most of the players that we've had transfer are guys that are looking for an opportunity to play for the most part. Not all, for the most part. They're looking for a chance. They're down the depth chart and they just want a chance to play. And I think that's more legitimate. There are some cut and run guys. There's no question about that. But I think that, they're talking about some rule where everybody gets a free transfer for 1 year, doesn't have to sit. Well, then if they do that, then everybody will just strictly recruit off the transfer portal,
Yeah.
So I think they need to be careful with this. I mean, because, when I was in college, hell, I wanted to cut and run a lot, It's like, oh, this is hard. Yeah, it's hard. And then, but, there's a certain amount of growth and benefit to persevering and pushing through, and the ability to do that is something that you learn. You're not just born with. And I think that having to push through provides its own rewards, and I think that that's a important thing that we need to make sure doesn't get lost.
Few minutes, Mike Leach with us, Hail Varsity Radio, head coach, Mississippi State. Big showdown with Auburn this weekend, and Coach right now is signing cowbells for all the Mississippi State fans, and I'm sure a few Husker fans would send a cowbell your way if they had one. I got to ask you, with the conversation, when it comes to a kid, have you had kids look in the eye and say, Coach, here's my reason? And then does the conversation stay positive? Do you get ticked off? Does the kid get an attitude? You've had all instances, I'm sure.
What the first part of the question? What did you say? When
it comes to the transfer part, do you have kids come tell you themselves, or is it just something you find out after the fact?
Both. But they to go on the portal, they go to compliance. So you, even if they don't come to you, you hear from compliance that they're going to, and some kids, I mean, it's all shapes and sizes. Sometimes the guy's just discouraged and you need to pep him up a little bit. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the guy's a bad attitude guy and he beats you to the portal before, you were inclined to encourage him to move on. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a guy down the depth chart that you really have kind of a lot of admiration for, that tries hard, plays hard, does everything you ask him. He just wants an opportunity to play. And then at least in my case, I actively will call around and try to, find some people to, that would be a good opportunity for him. And then some have just been guys that, I don't know, like a young guy just gets discouraged prematurely, and rather than stick it out, where, odds are high he would have been successful if he kept pushing and kept trying. he didn't give himself that ample opportunity, goes on the transfer portal. And those type of guys, you'll see them on the portal again the following year. Some guys are perpetual portal guys, and I think that's a bad approach.
What's an instance? You said that there were times you wanted to cut and run. Who gave you the advice to stick it out? Obviously, you've had moments where you've had to persevere through things. But is there a moment you think back to, either undergrad, law school, coaching, whatever?
Well, I went to college. I graduated in 8 semesters, which is a little quicker than I'd recommend. I should have smelled the roses more. About 17. I should have smelled the roses more, but it's all the same thing with everybody. If you think about it, it's really, generally speaking, it's the same with everybody. You have a bad day, you feel sorry for yourself. You got all of a sudden, a midterm, a paper, and 2 other papers, and then a surprise pop quiz, all the stuff. You get overwhelmed with your academics. You start to feel sorry for yourself. You think maybe I should do something else. Is it all worth it? You start to feel sorry for yourself. 4 years of school, or in my case, if you go to law school, that's a long time. You feel sorry for yourself. You just got to boost yourself up. And I found that just kind of trying to be around positive people, listening to positive people that have achieved things, I could draw my own encouragement out of that. Some of it was subtle. Some of it's just maybe a nice person or a stranger you met. Mm-hmm. Some of it were friends that I could confide in. Basically, they just listen and you get it off your chest, and just by articulating it, you create your own clarity to a situation. I can't say I was always right, but I think that it definitely helped, and it offered me a chance to make the right decision a lot of times. I don't know. You just got to keep pushing. You got to keep showing up, and all you can do every day is believe in yourself and do the best you can. And I think in the end, that'll take you quite far.
Mike Leach with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, hang on the line. If you got a couple more minutes, we'll get into some more signing topics, some of the things you've signed that's unique in your career. This Pirate's sitting there in his office just rattling around cowbells, and we will play Name That Tune in 2021 with him, I promise. He'll have a cowbell. Willie J or Elijah or Damon will pick the song, and we'll play that Name That Tune with the Pirate. So that'd be all right. Reminder about buckling up. 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska not wearing a seatbelt. If used properly, a safety belt can reduce risk of fatal injury by up to 60%. Your best defense in any crash, buckling up, brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. So more coming up with Mike Leach. We'll get back into the autograph session, signing. Leach will be pretty good with that. We'll spend some more time here on Nebraska, Minnesota as that gears forward. Do not forget, we are at the Mercado tomorrow. Me and Jay Moore. Roadshow Friday, North 84th with Piedmontese. More with Coach Leach next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Mike Leach with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach sitting in, getting ready for practice, signing cowbells. We could play Name That Tune, but I want to ask you, what's the coolest or the most unique thing you've signed in your career? And I know there's a lot of books out there, Swing Your Sword, that have autographs.
I don't know about cool, but unique was, okay, so I was at a signing. At Texas Tech, and after the spring game, we would have autograph signing. Okay, and so there's a lady back there, an older lady, and she's a big older lady, and she comes up and kind of laughing and blushing, and she comes up and she holds up this bra.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, this bra, we're talking volleyball size, okay? I don't know what the letters of the alphabet would be, but
multiple D's.
It's higher volleyball, okay? and so then and she's sort of embarrassedly laughing as she did it, and then you can see by her T-shirt that was the one that she wore to the game that day. Okay, because you can see that at some point it was pulled off, and then behind her, or kind of and I'm assuming her adult kids, because they're younger than her, but her adult kids. It's almost like mom lost a bet or something, or they dared her or something, and so they're back there just laughing, right? And she brings up the bra and says, "Would you sign this?" Well, I'm happy to sign nearly everything. And so, yep, sure enough, I signed a big bra.
So you got to sign a bra, but have you ever had to sign, or I shouldn't say have to, have you been asked to sign cleavage before?
I went at the top, kind of between the neck and the cleavage. Basically, I agreed to shoot high. Okay,
sure.
I did have a guy come up one time, and no, I mean, as long as he enjoys it, I guess it's a good thing. But he has me sign his arm.
Okay.
Autograph his arm, because he's planning as soon as it's as soon as it's done. From there, he's going to go get it tattooed on his arm.
Okay.
And I thought tattooing my signature to an arm, I wouldn't encourage anyone to. I would think very carefully about a move like that, but hopefully he's still satisfied with my signature tattooed to his arm.
Back to the aiming high portion of the interview between cleavage and neck. Was the technique solid? Were you shaky or not?
No, not shaky at all. Not shaky at all, but I'm left-handed,
okay.
So it's naturally kind of a shaky signature to begin with. Left-handers will relate to this because if it's going to smear, you're kind of screwed. You don't get to rest. You don't get to rest your hand down while you write like a righty does, because a lefty, if you rest your hand down and write, it's going to smear it.
Gotcha.
You know.
Yes.
And so you try not to do that.
Coach, last thought before we let you go. Bowl picture. Everyone's able to go bowling. The bowl options continue to shrink. Do you guys think you'll have an opportunity? And could we get Moose on the horn and put together a Mississippi State-Nebraska showdown somewhere?
I don't know. It sounds like, though, we will have the chance to go to a bowl just, because of the slots. Mm-hmm. I would be excited about another game, under any circumstances. And but it does look like we signed a thing the other day that, yes, we are excited to go to a bowl if given the opportunity.
Well, best of luck this weekend. You feel pretty good. Practice, I know you're going to head to the last practice before walkthrough and all that, but good week for you guys as Auburn rolls in?
I think we've had a pretty good week of practice. We need to keep progressing and keep getting better that way, but I think we have had a good week.
Well, Coach, keep signing those cowbells, and Merry Christmas to you and the family, and We'll do this again. Thanks for jumping on with us.
All right, absolutely. Always good to talk to you.
It's a Pirate, Mike Leach. We've got the technique on signing and aiming high above cleavage, below the neckline. And that is, Leach has told 1,000 stories with us over the years, from requesting the haunted room in the Hollywood Hotel to talking about Santa this time of year and when he knew about Santa, to dirt clod fights and Roman candle wars, and how there are beautiful people in the city of Cuba that can dance, to now the Texas Tech fan that's burned into his imagery that provided him with a bra to sign after a spring game. Doesn't get any better than that.
It really doesn't.
And he got very descriptive, since radio is a medium he's familiar with, was on Sirius XM with Jack Arute for a year between Tech and Washington State. He got descriptive, and he said volleyball size.
Paints the picture.
It does. That was thoroughly enjoyable. And it was good enough to have him just kind of go off on the whole transfer portal. It's like, there's a few guys I want to kick out.
Yeah.
But I can't. But no, Pirate's the best, man. He's good. So we'll have part of that up on the SoundCloud for you, ESPNLincoln.com, the on-demand section, the full Pirate interview with Mike Leach, but specifically signage. Coaches get asked to sign a lot of things. I got to call Switzer up, see if he can go down memory lane with, because this all started like with, spring football, and it's autograph day, it's fan day. Didn't have it this year, obviously, but where things get weird with fans asking you to sign things. And what kind of spurred this on was, Willie J, your Twitter, because you had a friend or somebody you were with in Arizona that you signed ESPN Lincoln 1015 on the cast.
That's right.
Because you're always repping.
Mm-hmm. Got to take advantage.
You do. Mm-hmm. There's no more ink left in the Sharpie on that thing, but that was good. So that was really awesome. Mike Leach this hour, Gary Barnett this hour, Brandon Vogel, Danny Burke with his best bets. We'll wind down a Thursday. We are at the Mercado Piedmontese tomorrow. North 84th, myself, Jay Moore, back after this.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
What final time? And again, Roadshow Friday, the Mercado, North 84th, certified Piedmontese. I have had kielbasa. I have had their Louisiana Red Hot. I have tried their beef brat. I have had New York strip. I have had ribeye. And for Thanksgiving, we went bone-in prime rib. Yes. And short ribs on Joe Papa's smoker. Incredible. You know I'm a big-time carnivore. I love steak. Right?
Nothing wrong.
And when I talk about Piedmontese, your friends at the Mercado, an incredible butcher shop, they'll take care of you. They'll treat you right. They will give you amazing. Oh, and I even did their to-go burnt ends. And I mistakenly shared, which means I got none, which is fine. People I was sharing with, awesome folks, love them dearly. So it was all good, but it was a hit. It's like, hey, you can come over more Friday nights.
The one piece of meat I've always wanted to try, beef Wellington.
Okay, so is that... I'm going to just look it up here. I see it, I know it, but is there something like incredible in the middle? Like you have chicken Kiev that has butter in the middle, right? That shoots you in the face. In the face.
Sure. I don't know. I watch a lot of Hell's Kitchen. They cook it all the time. It looks magnificent.
Okay, we're going to look up beef. We got to do that for Christmas.
Man.
So we're gonna just dive into beef Wellington. It does look incredible. Mm-hmm. It's crusted.
Yeah,
Willie
there's
J.
like dough on the outside.
Yeah. So it's like a loaf of bread with. It's like a loaf of bread with either tenderloin or prime rib in the middle. Dude, beef Wellington. It's an English pie made with filet steak coated with pate. It's a delicacy.
Oh, man.
Because it's wrapped in ham and puff pastry, then it's baked.
Man.
Dude.
It's on the bucket list.
Undefeated. Well, I'll talk. You know what? We're going to talk to him about what type of meat should we do for beef Wellington. I mean, I know it says the tenderloin, but I'll go pick out a tenderloin. Bang! We're gonna do beef Wellington for Christmas at the Schmidt house.
I'll be over.
Done.
I'll be over.
It's right there. Mama's working. You can just sit where she's at. It's all good. My brother may charge you a door entry, but that's just him. Don't mind him. Do you buy Coach K's? Let's push this thing back. Let's cancel because Duke's canceled the rest of their non-conference. They are kind of tired of getting their ass handed to them.
I wonder if other schools are going to follow part on that.
Well, you got Pitino and Coach K whining. And listen, they're really good, and they've got NBA dudes, but they're not playing well together. And, you had a Nebraska fan that was ticked off about the Illinois game. Nebraska fan ticked off about losing the Wisconsin game, and I get it. But I think you're seeing this team get a lot better. And I think there's a log jam, right? Wisconsin's human this year. Northwestern's 4 points better than about everybody, or a touchdown. Nebraska's playing good ball. They need to keep it up Saturday. Jay Moore on the road with me tomorrow. Thanks for spending time. Check that Mike Leach interview out. Hail Varsity back at you on the road at the Mercado tomorrow.